A few days ago, I was asked to take a look at the Bitcoin chart on a 5-day time frame and use the Gaussian channel to see what is going on with the price action of BTC. I have obviously now had a look, and I'm going to quickly do this video for you guys so you can understand what this is all about and why the Gaussian channel could be a really important indicator when it comes to the Bitcoin bull run. So guys, as we get into this video, if you do find it useful and informative, hit the like button. I really do appreciate that. If you are new to the channel, then do subscribe, tap the bell, select all notifications, and in doing so, you will not miss another update here at 𝗕𝗘𝗪𝗏. So this one comes courtesy of Peter over in our Telegram group, one of the admins as well. So if you're not familiar, do head over to the Telegram group, link in the description below. He's been monitoring this one and has asked us to have a look at it as well. So we are actually going to just quickly dive into what the Gaussian channel is, and then obviously dive into a little bit more on why this is really important. So ultimately, just kind of the Gaussian channel here basically smooths out your candles, okay, and basically allows you to remove some of the noise, and you can kind of see the progression of a cryptocurrency. And the Gaussian channel works best when you have a long history to it. If you only have a cryptocurrency that's maybe only been around for a year, it's not really going to be that accurate for you, and you're not really going to be able to utilize it to its maximum efficiency. With that being said, if you've got a long time period, such as a Bitcoin here, and you're able to throw this into a 5-day chart using something like TradingView with the Gaussian channel, you're going to start seeing some interesting patterns appear. So in order to really kind of talk about this in detail, what first thing we're going to do is actually just shoot on back kind of to some of these previous bull runs, because this is where things get really interesting. I'm just going to zoom this out a little bit, right? So here we can obviously see that things really kind of kick-started back in 2011, and this is where the data goes back to, but we're really going to focus in on the 2013, okay? So here we can see there was an interesting run. Now, again, like I said, right, interesting as this is, it's hard to actually use this in an accurate way because there's insufficient amount of data that kind of preceded it, okay? So not enough information over here going into this end basically means that this is not exactly the most reliable, but it gives us a pretty good, interesting start point as data starts to build up and gives us an interesting perspective later down the line. So during this kind of run up here for the 2013 bull run, where we have that double tap, right? We have the first wave, we come back down, and we actually come down and test the upper level of the Gaussian channel, okay? And we then bounce up to here, and we actually wick into, but do not close below, I believe. Let me just quickly check this. I'm pretty certain we didn't close in there. No, we didn't. So we closed pretty much on the line here, and then we basically shot on up and out of this area for that next level, okay? So basically we went up to the second peak in 2013 before we went into a bear market. And now this is where things get interesting on the BTC chart here, the 5-day chart with the Gaussian channel. Basically, what you saw was basically a breach of our top level Gaussian trend line, okay? And actually we came down into our middle trend line. And this particular support line, the middle one of the Gaussian channel, is very strong. So we actually saw a bounce in this area. So let me make this a little bit bigger so you can see. So here we basically had a breakdown in 2013 and we came down into our middle channel here, and then we bounced, okay? But we didn't actually go above our top level. So our top level that was previously a support line became resistance, and we got stuck inside the channel. So if you will, this is a dead cat bounce scenario, okay? We tumbled in, and then we bounced to the resistance line, and we tumbled back down to our support line, okay? And again, looking at this, we ended up with an interesting set of lower lows being set, right? Low here, lower low, and then we started to see a bounce from this area as we moved back up to the upper end of the channel, trying to break out, trying to continue the growth here for Bitcoin. Ultimately, you know, people thinking that it was just a correction and we're going to be pushing to the upside. So what you saw was basically hitting the resistance and then pulling back. Undecided kind of market, sideways trading, trying to find support once again on the middle support line here for the Gaussian channel. Losing that support is critical, and basically started to see us pull down, and we lost, although we were fighting it quite heavily between the bears and the bulls at this point, the bottom support line. Losing that then triggered into the bear market, okay? Now, the other thing that's really important about this Gaussian channel that's really kind of key for us to understand is basically when we are in this area down here, i.e. we're below the Gaussian channel, this is your buying opportunity, okay? And whether you're in a bear market or bull market, if you're underneath the channel, this is the opportunity to be had. Now, you have to use this with other indicators as well, ideally, if you're wanting to target the very, very bottom. But if you're just happy to kind of dollar cost average really good positions, if you're below the Gaussian channel, this is where that opportunity for good dollar cost average is going to be found. So what we saw, we actually come back into the channel briefly, got rejected from now what is a resistance middle line, going back below the Gaussian channel, finding the resistance, trying to break through and fight in this area here again before eventually breaking through and going above the Gaussian channel. And now we triggered a new bull run. Okay, so this entire motion here is basically your kind of your bear market, okay? And this kind of comes to play towards the end of 2015. Okay, and then we start this slow and steady burn up during 2016. And then what we started to see here is basically testing this upper channel. Okay, this new support line that was previously resistance became really strong for us. And as we go into 2017, we see things really going parabolic, really going nice and strong until we get to the absolute top. And then we started to see a fallback. Okay, then you get another dead cat bounce. We come down to our channel here. Okay, so the top support line of the Gaussian channel. And then we bounce up, okay, again, using other indicators to indicate where this was, and then obviously falling into the channel, okay? We've seen this before with the 2013 model. Falling into the channel, bouncing from our support in the middle here, failing to break through our previous support line, now resistance, and failing to hold our support of the middle band of the channel here, falling down to the lower area, we bounce again, okay? So we fall down, we bounce, failed to get past the middle band, falling down, really testing this again, the fight between the bulls and the bears before completely losing it, and then going into a bear market once again. Again, down here below the Gaussian channel is your buying opportunity. Okay, so here we are, basically going into 2018, finally going down to the low areas during 2019, or end of 18 into 2019 in the bear market. Then we obviously start to go back up into our Gaussian channel here, piercing through the resistance line, finding resistance, getting rejected, then having the breakthrough. Okay, so now we're in to the next little step. This is basically where the bull run should have started. And for most people, you could argue that it did. Okay, so even we have 5 impulse waves on our regular Bitcoin chart. And I have actually taken it from here, but we could argue that actually it should start from over here because we have a correction, okay? So in theory, if we didn't have a pandemic and everything kind of going wrong at early 2020, this should never have happened. This is an anomaly that should never have actually occurred. So in theory, it should have actually started down here and we should have seen a good steady rise to the inside, testing this area as a new support line. Instead, with everything that was going on late December 2019, going into early 2020, saw us actually slip below the Gaussian channel once again. And this again was another fantastic opportunity to be buying up because again, you're below the Gaussian channel and you're never down here for too long if you're a long-term investor. But we did see a nice then steady rise back up and finding the upper area of resistance and finally getting the breakthrough, finding that this area now is a support line for us. And then we go into a big run to the upside. This is where things start to get really interesting with the Gaussian channel. Okay, so far the history of Bitcoin using this Gaussian channel has been pretty interesting and insightful. But then we get into institutional manipulation. Okay, so we are going to the bull run now. We start to see a nice rise to Bitcoin's price, right? We go up to this area here, about 65K. And then we started to obviously notice, courtesy of many different people in the space, a Wyckoff distribution, right? We start seeing the pattern here, and then we pull down. We find support initially here on top of our trend. Okay, so our Gaussian channel, our trend line, our smooth line here, we find support. We were basically closing above, we were keeping it nice and consistent. We rallied up to, I believe it was about 41K, and then we saw a rejection from here. We saw the price pulled down. Okay, we saw the price pull down to below 30K. And this is the point when people were thinking that we were going into bear market, we're going down to 20K, etc. right? And actually what you saw at that particular point in time was the price actually pushed back to the upside. Okay, and then we started to see one more push down, again breaking those areas, bringing the price down to just below 30K. Once again, everyone basically thinking that it's going to go to 20K and go into a bear market, right? And this is the manipulation that I really want to talk about here at this point, because this is where you started to see a lot of people shorting Bitcoin, right? And, rightfully so. If you start thinking about the history of how things have been going, with just specifically looking at the Gaussian channel, you're losing this area. You are thinking you're at least going to this lower band area here, right? But instead, obviously, using leverage to go and create short positions is never going to be a wise idea when you know that there's manipulation at play, right? And we know that there's manipulation here. We can see it. It's in the charts, and it's also on things like Glassnode. We'll get into that in a moment. When you actually then come down into here, you start to think, okay, well, there's definitely going to have to be manipulation going on. This is our narrative on our channel. We've kind of been saying we're still in a bull market. We are now actually forming what was down here, a pattern of a Wyckoff accumulation. That got diverted away because we should have actually gone higher here. But I think there was too many people going long at that point. So they started to go short. And once everyone was started to short, they pushed the price up. Okay, so there was a lot of interesting ways. There was no way that a retail investor was necessarily going to win unless you were trying to play them at their own game. Ultimately, if you're thinking it was going to go down, the institutions were going to push the price up. And if you thought the price was going to go up, the institutions were going to push the price down. Check out some Wyckoff accumulation patterns. There's so many different variations depending on what's going on in the space at the time. They can push it in either direction, and that's the beauty of the pattern. So you have to be aware of that. Obviously, here we actually then started to see us move quite nicely back to the upside, but this time we did not. But didn't just find resistance this time. And this is what's really interesting now, and why this Powell pattern is very different to what we've seen previously. Now we have institutions really playing a heavy part with Bitcoin. We are seeing a different level of manipulation occur, and obviously as a result of this, the patterns are really hard to actually now marry up with what has happened previously. With this being said, we just zoom in on this most recent Gaussian channel here, and we can talk about what's been going on. We actually got the closed candle above, several of them in fact, and then most recently, just a couple of days ago, we saw another Bitcoin pullback, right? And this pullback was based on, again, more bad actors in the space, where there was a bit of a narrative to basically encourage people to buy up $30 worth of BTC. In doing so, basically the narrative was that the Bitcoin price will surge when El Salvador goes with legal tender for Bitcoin. Obviously, this is something that we've seen before with XRP on the 1st of February. Again, there was a narrative to buy up some XRP on the 1st of February. And instead, you saw the bad actors basically dump it on the market on the very day that it was supposed to move up. And again, this is all pre-planned. So on that note, you saw here a pullback into the Gaussian channel, but we are looking for nice recovery. And if we can get back above this Gaussian channel here, then we should continue our run to the upside. Now, with all this kind of manipulation and using the Gaussian channel, it can obviously now be a little bit alarming when we look at the history. So we have to obviously now take into consideration many other factors in the space. So one of the things that we have been looking at is taking a look at Glassnode and seeing whether or not there is more inflows of Bitcoin hitting the exchanges. So with this particular thing here, we can see this is the total inflows of BTC across all exchanges. This is what it was like when we saw the initial jump from 65K. The inflows of BTC were very, very high. Actually, we take a look at where things have been, we can see that they're actually incredibly low, much lower than we have seen previously and much lower than they were during the initial pump to the upside anyway. So we know that there's not a huge amount of Bitcoin flowing into the exchanges. This is actually a positive note when we talk about that Gaussian channel and a good recovery out of here. So I do think we are likely to see a nice push back to the upside. With that being said, we also have the stock to flow model, and specifically the stock to flow deflection model. This is indicating to us how the value of Bitcoin currently against the Bitcoin stock to flow model. And as a result of this, currently at the point of recording this video, we're at 0.42. Anything lower than 1 is undervalued, and anything over 1 is above value or overvalued. So we know that Bitcoin is actually below value according to the stock to flow model. The stock to flow model is still intact, is still working. And again, Plan B did predict a 43K Bitcoin in the month of September. Again, his predictions moving up, I think, to 63K for October and moving up nicely according to his recent tweet. So do check that out if you have missed it. It has been doing the rounds on Twitter recently. So knowing everything that we know, knowing that we're below the stock to flow model, which we haven't been previously, when we review the previous bull runs, we can see that we were below the stock to flow model for portions of time. And then we started to see a really big surge to the upside where we actually go above the stock to flow model value and where we're actually overvalued. This is the FOMO section. We know that previously bull runs have been very, very similar to this one. We see these come in, they test these areas, which is why Plan B has called out a 43K Bitcoin during the month of September. He called this in June, by the way. So check that out. Obviously understand the stock to flow model and why that's really important. It's definitely working well at the moment, even with the manipulation at play. Checking out Glassnode, making sure that we're aware of any inflows and outflows and purchases and various different things that are going on with exchanges with BTC help us stay above the edge, right? Making sure that we can be aware when the inflows of Bitcoin hitting exchanges starts to increase dramatically. All of this coupled with our stock to flow model, our Glassnode data, the advice.io dashboard for the artificial intelligence perspective, the Gaussian channel, and everything else that we have in terms of what is going on with our regular chart, the Fibonacci retracement zones also coinciding with where we are currently sat with our Gaussian channel. Everything is coming together quite nicely for Bitcoin, but there is an interesting time that does lie ahead. We need to get above this channel in a nice, strong way. Failure to do so would see a potential rejection and potentially a small kind of bear market scenario. So we do have to be mindful over that and obviously be looking forward to what is on the horizon next. I am incredibly bullish for Bitcoin. I still think this is just a bit of an unfortunate series of events considering everything that has been going on with the manipulation in the space. Hopefully, guys, you have found this video useful and informative. If you have, hit the like button. I really do appreciate that. If you are new to the channel, then do subscribe, tap the bell, select all notifications, and in doing so, you will be kept up to date with everything that we do here. With this said, done, and out of the way, I hope everyone has a fantastic day, and I'll catch you all in the next one.